Welcome to the Arkansas Baptist Women Podcast. This year, we are focusing on what it means to be an Arkansas Baptist woman, a woman who loves the Lord, lives on mission for the gospel, is present in her calling, is trained and equipped to lead, and is sold out to Jesus. I'm excited to talk about life, ministry, and our relationship with Jesus. So grab a cup of coffee and join the conversation. Hey, sweet friends, it's Andrea. I hope that you're doing really well today. We are right in the middle of a series from Leadership Collective where we're talking about ministry to women. Our first two episodes really focused on what women's ministry is, why it's important, how it can be implemented in the local church. So be sure and check out those episodes if you missed them. Today, we're going to talk about research. We're going to talk about different statistics that we have learned about the effectiveness of ministry to women in the local church, why we need it, the role that it can play, and also how you can utilize this research to make sure that you're meeting the needs of the women in your church and community. So enjoy this episode as Kelly King talks to us about Lifeway research when it comes to ministry for women.
We're going to look at how to do a ministry survey, how to assess the women in your church. We're going to look at how to do team covenants, team expectations, how to build a team in your ministry. Then we're going to look at how to run a good meeting, how to do a good meeting with your team. And then we're going to look at how do you do some leadership assessments for your team. We're going to look at budgeting for your ministry. Even if you don't get any money, you still need to have some good ways to look at how you are going to deal with what your resources, what you have. So those are the kind of areas we're going to dive into, and we're going to start with the ministry survey and assessment. There's a handout in your packet. You can take a few notes if you want to. So if you're new in leadership, how many of you have been in your church leadership for less than 3 years? All right, Andrea, look around. There's a lot of you. Okay.
Raise your hand.
Did you come into it kind of going, I don't know what to do, or did you have a pretty good idea? Or, there's both. Just so you know, Lifeway does an incredible conference that we call Essentials. And it is for women's ministry leaders in the local church who've been in that position 3 years or less. The conference doesn't cost you anything. You just have to get your way to Nashville. And if you want to find out more, Andrea or Sherry both can help you find out that. We only let 25 women in at a time, and we only do it twice a year, and they fill up because it's such a valuable conference. And you get resources and training, and so we really try to help new leaders in that way. But if you're a new leader, and here I was, just a few months ago, coming to a new church. I knew some people in the church. But I knew that I was coming to a fairly large church. I knew a little bit about them, but I needed to find out who are the women in our church. Are we serving them well? How are we doing on some certain things? So one of the first things I decided we needed to do is we're going to do a ministry survey. We're going to find out. I'm going to send it to all the women in the church, and we're going to figure this out. And so this was really valuable information to me and that I can use with my church staff. When I showed it to the adult ministry leader, he's my team leader, and so I could show it to him and I could say, here's what our women are saying. And it gives you some opportunities to grow in different areas. So here's some things that I would consider. If you want to do a typical survey or you want to assess and just find out what's happening in your church. Number one, find an online platform so that women can go straight to the form. Now, some of you may be in small churches where women like to fill out pieces of paper. But can I just encourage you, there are lots of online tools you can use to do this survey. So it can be a Google form, a Microsoft Office form. There's all different types of things out there, but I did it in Google Forms. It's just a separate area of Google, not hard. And you can put in all different types of questions. You can use your email system to get it out. Like maybe your church does an email. So I used the email system to send it to all the women in my church. I could segment the women and I could say, okay, I need you to fill this out. You have this much time to fill it out. And so that was really, really helpful. So out of a church, we run around 1,600, 1,700 on a given Sunday. And I had more than 300 women fill it out. I think that's a pretty good response. And here's some things that I wanted to do. I did promote the survey. I made sure that people knew it was out there, so I tried to find all the different ways in our church that women could find out that there was a survey out there. But I also told them there was a cutoff date. You don't want the survey out there forever, so it's like, okay, you have 2 weeks to fill this out or whatever. I put it on our social media. I just like, here's the link, all those kinds of things. Give them an easy way to fill that out. You might even offer an incentive. Like if you complete the survey, I'm going to do a random drawing for a gift card to someplace, whatever, because you're going to have access to who filled out the surveys. I wouldn't do a survey for everyone unless you have a lot of money, but whatever. If, you could maybe find something that you wanted to do. But, maybe 2 or 3 different prizes or whatever. I did not do that, and I regret not doing that. I kind of wish I would have done maybe some kind of prize, but I didn't. Here's what I did first, is I designed the survey, and I actually used my book, because I was like, okay, I'm going to use the survey I actually wrote and put it in there. But I adapted it. You have to look at that. It is not foolproof. And you have to go, okay, well, in my church, I need to ask this question. One of the questions I would change in the survey in the book is when I asked you to describe yourself, we expanded that. So I think in the book, I can't remember, but there's like different, like single, married with children, whatever. We gave them a lot of different options on that one. So if they were single, we identified, were you single, never married? Are you single, divorced? Are you a single mom? Are you a widow? So we wanted to kind of know that demographic a little more. So you can ask those different types of things. And when I finished what my questionnaire was going to be, I sent it to 3 different women on my staff in our church offices. One of them works in the missions office. One of them, and she's early empty nester. I sent one to a mom who has teenagers. And then I sent it to our girls minister, who's 24 years old. Because I wanted to see, am I kind of hitting on all the different ages, and am I asking the right questions? And so immediately, with 3 different people, it kind of gave me a good basis to go, okay, I think we're on the right track. Did you see anything in the questionnaire that you were like, I don't want to answer that, or I don't feel comfortable with that, or I think that's awkward? So just test it. Get a few people to test it for you. Also, it helps if you have any typos. And so that always is helpful too. Don't ask them a lot of open-ended questions. And what I mean by that is you don't want to say, so tell me what you would change in our women's ministry. And they have to write it all out. Most women don't want to give you the time to do all that. And they may not know exactly what they want to say. And so you want to use pretty much pat answers, like really simple, multiple choice, so they can just click on that and think about it, ladies. Do you like to do surveys? Not necessarily. If you're going to do a survey for someone, you want it to be pretty easy. So keep it easy. I think I asked 1 or 2 open-ended questions because I wanted to find out, if there was a place that they wanted to serve, what would that look like? Or if we weren't hitting the mark, could they tell me a reason why? Something like that. Because I wanted to dig just a little bit deeper on that. And then I had to figure out, okay, I took this survey. Here's what I found out. And the good thing about like Google Forms or Microsoft Forms is you can hit that response little tab and it tabulates everything for you. Yeah. It's so delightful. And so then you've got pie charts and everything else. And so now, here I've got all this information, but then I go, well, what do I do with the information? So, my first big event is we did a spring event. We did it on a Sunday afternoon, and I told them up front, I was like, we're going to do a challenge message, but I'm going to reveal the findings. We're going to talk about what you all said. You're going to find out what is it, and then that will help us go where we're going. That gives us some direction of what the next steps are for our ministry and our church. And so it was super revealing. And there were a couple things that I I was a little surprised. Number one, I knew that our Bible studies, we were only offering Bible studies on Thursday mornings. We had one small group that met on Wednesday nights, but I knew that we have a huge segment of our population that can't come on a Thursday morning. You all do too. You know you have women in your church that work or just whatever. So I needed the data to tell them that. I needed to be able to say, look, here's the percentage of women who tell me that this is the best time for them to come. It also gave me insight that I have a lot more older women in my church than I have younger women in my church. Now, does that mean younger women just didn't fill out the survey? I wondered that because I was like, okay, but I went to some of their classes and I was like, please, 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 I need your age group to do this. But it really did show me that I have a lot of women in my church that are already retired. For me, what that says is that I have a lot of very experienced women in my church that are they have time on their hands. And they want to serve. They're looking for things to do. So that gave me insight to be like, hey, okay, you have some opportunities here to serve that maybe somebody else doesn't that's still working full time. So that the other revealing thing to me, and I thought because we were past COVID enough, is I asked them about Bible studies. And I had over 30% of my women tell me that they still liked online Bible studies. I was like, are you serious? I thought we were past it. I just thought maybe everybody's ready to come back together. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I really don't want to offer a lot of online Bible studies, but it does show that there's a need. So, and I started asking people, and they were like, well, part of the reason is that I have little children, and I want to be able to do it after I put them to bed, and I just want to be able to do it in my pajamas or whatever. And I was like, okay. So that's helpful information. So this past week, I sent out an email, and I said, hey, some of you, and I could use that data, and I said, some of you mentioned in the survey that you like online Bible studies. Here's an option that you can do. And I just pointed them to Lifeway's online Bible studies. I don't have to create a new online Bible study. I just need to show them where to connect with people that are already doing that. So that was really, really helpful. Lots of information you can get. So those are just some little tidbits on taking a survey and why you should. If you haven't done one in maybe 5 to 10 years, it might be time to do it again because your church changes. You get new members, people change, and so you want to take the temperature of what's happening in your church. I also got comments. I asked them if they felt like our ministry to women if it met the needs of most of the women in our church, or some, or not very well, and the majority of them said it didn't fit everyone. And I thought that was really important, that there was something about our ministry to women that only certain people felt like they could be part of it. So that's a challenge for me. All right, let's talk about your team, and let's talk about building your team. Now, there's a whole chapter in the book on teams, and there's a lot of little things about people that, like the kind of people, kind of women you want on your team. There are all different kinds of teams. Even like today, what Sherry and Andrea are sharing of the different teams here. Different women have different talents and so your team may look different in your church. So for a church my size, I'm building a leadership team, and they will be kind of a visionary, setting the direction, setting calendar, looking at the budget, helping me think through the overall arching part of our ministry. But even within that, I know that I need to build a Bible study team. Y'all would have thought this was just like, the guys on my staff thought that I was brilliant, but it was really just the most simple thing ever. So we had like 3 Bible studies on Thursday morning of women, but they never got together. The leaders never got together. They all did their own thing. And so I was just like, hey, what if we, on one, I got the leaders together and I said, let's have a break time, and I'll provide bagels, and we'll just so that way women get to see each other and I can share some of the things that are happening. And I'm like, this is the best idea ever. I was like, it's really not hard. And we just had bagels, and we just talked. But those are things that I know I need to build a Bible study team. And I know that I need to have different teams for different events that I'm going to do. because the more women you involve, the more opportunities for them to grow spiritually, the more opportunities for them to grow in community, and it really will enhance your whole church. It really, really will. So it's important. But one of the things that I really think is important, especially with a leadership team, is that you set some expectations for them, like written expectations, and maybe some requirements. Like you give them, and there's a sample team covenant, I think, in the book. You can look some up online as well, but put together what is going to be helpful for you. It is not the law. It is not something that you break something in this and we are done, like you're out, you're disfellowshipped, whatever. No. Like this is just to help you as a leader and help the people coming on. Most women that I know, when I came on board, there was this group of women who served as the search team of bringing me on, and they were so sweet that they were like, "We are committing to you, Kelly, a full year of us serving for you, and that way until you can figure out like the team that you want." And they are amazing. I'm meeting with them on Sunday, and so they've been praying for our ministry for a year. Now they're helping me think through some things. They know it so well. But I'm actually bringing to them a team covenant this week, and I'm saying, I need you to evaluate this. What am I missing? What are we asking women to step up and do? Sherry will tell you, as a trainer at Lifeway, every year I would send out, here's the expectations. Here's what I'm going to do as your leader, and here's what I need from you. Now, I always ask women to serve for about a year at a time, because in a year, things change. I tell them they can serve up to 3 years, and that way we rotate off. Because I'm like, I need to bring new leaders on. If you have the same women on your team that you've had forever, it's probably like you probably are missing out on something. Or if they are all from your same age and stage of life, that's the only people you're going to ever reach. You need all different types of people on that team. So keep it scriptural when you start putting this together. Encourage them with things like, hey, like together we believe that the Bible is true. Like that sounds simple, but you don't want that to be a district. Like you don't want someone on your team that might be not teaching the right thing, but you want to go, look, here's what we believe about the Bible, and we believe that Scripture is without error. There are we hold fast to these certain things in our church, and then I also just tell them, like, in a year, this gives us a chance to evaluate. This is good for you as a leader and good for them, because sometimes in a year's time, life changes. There's health issues that come up, there are family issues that come up, and some of them might be like, I need a break. I have a lady right now that served on this team, and she's our head kind of person over our welcome center. And when I told her that I was going to have a rotation basis, she was like, oh, I'm so glad. She said, when I finally said yes to helping with the welcome center, they didn't tell me that I would never get off. But she said, I'm still doing it. And I'm like, that's not really good. Like, you need a break every once in a while. So, and if they're not living up to the expectation, then it's that conversation of, you know what, maybe this just isn't the right time. Like, maybe we need to take a break. I've had to do that with women before and just say, you know what, it's not that you aren't fulfilling this or whatever, but, maybe I just haven't seen you. You haven't come to meetings. You haven't participated. You're not really involved. And that's what, is it just not a good time? And sometimes it's just not. So if you have that time commitment, that's important. Ask them specific ways you want them to serve. If there's a specific thing, like, do you want the person to do your social media? Do you want that person to handle Bible study? Do you want that person, you can give them assignments if you want, or they can be really general. And so I think that's really good. I also think it's a time for you to think about, how do you appreciate your members? How do you bless them? How do you just say thank you? A lot of you serve in volunteer positions, and sometimes it is just a verbal thank you, right? It could be a text message or a small note in the mail, but sometimes it's tangible. My assistant and I, a couple weeks ago, I told her we were doing research, and I took her to a really cute cafe that had a meeting room. And I said, we're going to check out the food, and we're going to check out the room, because we might want to have a meeting here. We might want to have our all-day meeting. And but it'll be nice. It's not just in the church conference room, It'll be a little different. Get them out and do something fun. And then, I didn't think this was a big deal, but it is a big deal. I communicate with my team every single week. I let them know what's happening. I let them know what's going on, what we're seeing. And the first couple of weeks, I had a couple of them say, thank you for just telling us what's going on. I was like, has no one ever done that? And they were like, no. You're the leader, and how is your team going to know what's going on if you don't communicate? So it's as simple as an email. It's really not that hard. So make sure that your team knows what's going on. Now, let's move on to running a meeting. Okay, that's team building and team covenants. So if that's something that you're dealing with, you might want to sit at one of those tables. Running a meeting. Okay, women are busy. They do not have time for unnecessary meetings. So here's the question you ask yourself. If this information can be conveyed in an email, then send out an email. Right? If you're the only one talking in a meeting, it probably is an email. Meetings are for collaboration, they are for input, they are for prayer for each other. It means what can we do face to face that we can't do any other way? You want to get input, but be organized, have an agenda. Don't just come waltzing in like, well, we have this meeting on the table, and I don't know why we're meeting, but we are. Set the calendar. I have already set my team meetings for the rest of the year. I've already done that. And that way they have it on their calendar. Be prepared. Like I said, have an agenda, send it out before the meeting. My ladies know tomorrow. I've already told them, here's the things that we're going to talk about tomorrow. Come prepared. These are the things that we're going to do. Because there are some women who need time to process. They might be an internal processor, and they really need to think through it. And so even like my team covenant, I gave it to them last month so that they've had a whole month to look at that. Will they look at it tomorrow afternoon, an hour before we meet? Probably, but at least I gave it to them. They did have it.
100%.
Be transparent. Share your struggles, but also protect your staff. Don't be afraid to share with them when money's tight or maybe things aren't going well. When you're in a meeting, your team needs you to be, you need them to be cheerleaders for you, but you also need to be cheerleaders for them. And when you're transparent about something that's really hard in ministry, that they can be your greatest advocates. They really can. And even last month, I shared with them kind of a prayer concern in my own personal life. And two of them afterwards came up and felt vulnerable enough to share with me what was happening in their life. And we've been able to text each other and say, how's that going? I'm praying for you. Because when you start developing that kind of community, that really does begin to help form spiritual formation in your women's ministry. Again, in your meetings, have a lot of time for collaboration and conversation. These are this is where you get your ideas. They might not all be good ideas, and that's okay. You don't just try to have a nice face. Don't tell them, don't make your face be like, that's the worst idea ever. Just and Sherry will tell you, I love big Post-it notes. I will use big Post-it notes and write down ideas. I will put them in groups and I will have them come together and I will compile all those things. But you need that collaboration. And include something fun in your meetings. Do something fun. Tomorrow night I've got a little game that I'm going to play with them just because it'll help me get to know them better. One time I showed up with crumble cookies. Who doesn't love a good crumble cookie? And they were surprised. They weren't expecting something like that. And so do something fun every once in a while. End the meeting by recapping everything, agenda items, stay on time, and remember to celebrate with your team when that's appropriate too. Now, the next section is also on teams, and that's on how to do leadership assessments. And when I say this, this may be something, I have not done this yet. I'm still getting to know my team a little bit. But as I get to know them, I probably will give them some kind of assessments. There's a spiritual gift survey in the back of the book. You're welcome to copy that and use that however that best serves you. You can find things online. Start with spiritual gifts. We live in a society that loves personality tests. They're not all great, but they can help you understand people. But sometimes I think we place so much emphasis on personality and not our spiritual giftedness. And so I really would love to get us back to spiritual giftedness, because that is to edify the body, and so that's what you're there for. So emphasize that. There's some other good things out there. There's a newer one, The Working Genius. You can find out things about people. I like one called 5 Voices. It's super simple. You can go to 5voices.com, I think, and it's a free test. But it tells you whether you have people who are nurturers or pioneers or creatives or connectors or they're guardians. And that really helps you understand when you're in a meeting and someone is really cautious and they're afraid to maybe move forward with something, it might have to do something with their personality a little bit. Like they might be a guardian, and you need that. You need all the voices at the table. And it also helps you if you do some personality assessments. You don't need, like at this table, we don't need to be all 6 connectors. Because all we're talking about is how we're connecting things to each other, but no one is nurturing one another and no one's protecting the budget. No, I mean, you've got to have differences of voices at the table. So that's important too. Have them share the results. There's a ministry out of Atlanta that I've used for a long time called Place Ministries. If you're ever familiar with Place Ministries, I think I should get a kickback from them for every time I mention them. But they have an assessment that starts with spiritual giftedness, but also goes into personality and also your passions, but also your experiences. Because you and I might be gifted in the same way, but because of our life experiences, we use them differently. And so that helps you understand a little bit too. Here's the other thing about assessments. Don't put people in a box. My daughter, she is 29 years old, so she's kind of in that late millennial, early Gen Z, whatever. But do not tell her she's a millennial, and do not tell her she's a Gen Z. She does not want to be put in a box. She's like, I am not like that, and I don't want you to tell me I'm like that. She might be like that, but I'm not going to tell her. But we do sometimes, like when you do personality tests, we'll be like, well, that's because you're that. You're responding that way because that's where you are. Don't do that. That's not a good excuse. That's not. It helps you understand them, but that doesn't mean that they can't change or that they can't be used. They can use other things. This was in college. I remember a pastor teaching on spiritual gifts, and he said, spiritual gifts, you can do all of the spiritual gifts. You don't just go, hey, my spiritual gift is teaching, and that's all I do is teach. It's like, no, we exercise all the gifts. You might be really gifted in one particular thing. He said, the best thing you can do is for someone to look at you and go, I have no idea. They're really good at all of it. It's like, we should never have to pinpoint someone and go, that's the only thing that they could do. Just a thought. Okay, I'm running out of time. Budgeting for ministry. Let's talk about money. Oh, okay. So, whether you get a budget or not, you have to keep track of your spending. You really need to know, what are you spending and where's it coming from? We know that being a good steward is biblical. So here's some things to consider if you do need to put together a budget. And there's a really great budget PDF at Lifeway. If you go to lifewaywomen.com on the blog, you can just type in budgeting and it'll bring up that blog, and there's a really good PDF from my friend Dawn Stevens. And some of this is from her, but she'll say, know when your church creates their budget and meet with the appropriate staff people so that you know what is there. Ask questions about the plans for the future and what it takes to get there. For instance, there's a retreat in Oklahoma this weekend, and I did not take a group of women to the retreat, number one, because I knew I wasn't going to be there to help coordinate it. But number two, we would have to find our own lodging, and it would cost a lot of money, and I didn't budget that money. Now, next year when I budget, I might look at my team and say, do you want to take a group to this event? Because if so, then I need to set aside this amount of money so that we have a place to stay as a group. Those are practical things. I have to look at the future and go, what is it that I'm going to need to get us where we need to go? Do you need more people? It's not just money, but do you need more people? Are you going to do more events? Are you going to do some training? Are you going to serve somewhere? Are you going to purchase some resources? Maybe you need to, I went to my team leader one day and I said, hey, do we ever help offset the cost of Bible studies? Because Bible studies are expensive, okay? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, okay. And so I made sure that I got the best possible deal I could on some Bible studies. And we're doing When You Pray this summer with the home groups. And so I was like, okay, I can get them at this price. I'm going to get this many. And this is what I can afford. And then I've got a group of women that can't afford to buy books. How many can I give? How many can I give to people? So you think about that. Try to put your budget into big chunks. Sometimes this will get us in trouble, is we try to detail every single thing, and we have a million things in our budget. Try not to do that, because it gets very confusing, and then you feel pigeonholed into those things. Try to put them in big chunks, like events, discipleship, missions, make them big chunks, so then within that budget, then you have flexibility of how that's going to fit in there. Don't take money out of one budget to pay for something in another, because you're going to go over budget in one area. Go ahead and let it be over budget, so that the next time you budget, you know that you need more. And you can show your supervisors, hey, this cost me more than I thought it was going to, but I didn't spend money over here. So that so you'll see that I'm less here, but I am over here. And that helps them see that. All of you have a tax ID. Make sure you're using that when you're spending money. You probably, if you don't know that, go to your church staff and ask them about that. Never buy anything at Hobby Lobby that's not 50% off. Those are tips, right? Although now it's 40%, right? Inflation. Okay, so if you have money at the end of the year and you think, hey, if I don't spend this, I'm going to lose it, at least try to evaluate things that you might need for the next year. So if you say, I have $500 left in my discipleship area, is that something you can do to pre-purchase books for the next semester so that you're a little ahead? And you can always ask those questions. Or maybe it's an investment for your team, something like that. Really do consider inflation. It's expensive, food's expensive. Even just as I'm thinking about Bible studies and food and all those kinds of things, it just keeps going up. And so trying to help people understand what that looks like. And again, keep records and document what you spend. I don't like spreadsheets. I just don't. They're not my love language. But I have gotten to where I know the value of a good spreadsheet. And so I've had to learn to live in that world a little bit better. And so learn the spreadsheets. Learn how to keep them, learn how to keep your expenses there. Here's my best advice, and this comes from my friend Dawn. If you're asking for money, I love what she says. She's like, you don't GET unless you ASK. You will never get it unless you ask for it. So ask the Lord to provide for you, but don't be afraid to ask somebody. We were talking at the table, and I said, I wonder how many women in here today, if you paid your own $25 to come today, or if your church paid for it. Now, if you paid for it, now, thank you for coming, and thank you for paying. What if you did that yourself? But did you ask if your church would pay for it? If they tell you no, and you still want to come, then that's on you. But you might be surprised. They might say yes. That's a very small investment for you to be here today and be equipped. That's a huge thing. So I think that's, so don't be afraid to ask, ladies. It's okay. It's okay. And if they tell you no, then you go, okay, no. But next time, ask again. You can be a pest sometimes. And I actually, we're doing a big women's worship night, and we're bringing in Christy McClellan. And she'll do a fabulous job for us, but she was not cheap. And it stressed me out. And I was just like, I am brand new here, and I'm getting ready to go to my business administrator and ask him for this. And I was like, okay, you don't GET unless you ASK. And so I went to him, and I went to my team leader, and I was like, this is what it's going to cost us. If I can get this many women, this will pay for it. If we can charge this much, da 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 da. I let them sit on it for a day, and they came back to me and they were like, we want you to go for it. And I said, what if I don't get all the money back? What if we don't pay for it? And they were like, we learned a lesson. I was like, okay. But they were like, we want this. We want to see our worship center full. We want to see women learning. We want women in here. So we're willing to risk it. And so I'm grateful. Now, that puts pressure on me. I mean, y'all come August 29th. You can drive all over the city. I've got women coming from out of state. But yeah, it'll be a fun night. But I'm grateful that I wasn't afraid to just go ahead and ask.
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks for listening. I hope today's episode helps you embrace the full, free, abundant life that Jesus provides. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to the Arkansas Baptist Women Podcast. If you would like more encouragement to help you grow in your faith, visit our website at absc.org/abw. Come back next time as we continue to talk about how we can worship, grow, connect, serve, and share together. I can't wait to talk to you soon.